This picture you see familiar. It's been the home of Ghana's parliament since the start of the Fourth Republic nearly 30 years ago. Today, plans to relocate and to build a modern, bigger House of Parliament has received a significant boost internationally. Renowned Ghanaian architect David Frank Ajay has been handed the contract to design and build the structure, but the exact cost of the project has not been determined. We'll hear from the Speaker and the architect shortly, but first, here is what to expect in the new Parliament House building. So essentially what you see there gives you an idea of what the new facility would look like. What it means, we're told, is that the current edifice will be turned into a conference facility. Well, Majority Leader Osei Mensah Bonsu has been explaining why the new chamber is urgently needed.
I think that we are on course, and I'm impressed by what I've seen. The space fronting the chamber, I think we all agree that it should be sufficient to accommodate the numbers who would want to witness, say, a president deliver a message on the State of the Nation, or indeed at the very coronation of any president. I think we should come to some terms that once we finish with this, we say goodbye to Black Star Square. That is not where it's supposed to be. We convert that square into Parliament on that day. And then when the president is being sworn in, we have the entire space being breached by non-members of Parliament, and they may not even want to surrender space to the members of Parliament. So I think that is by and large, a very useful thing. So we shall have adequate space to accommodate our citizens who want to witness the situation and the coronation of the president, and also have adequate infrastructure for those of them who are not able to come into the chamber, or wherever it should be done, to accommodate them, and they all feel part of it.
Majority Leader Osei Mensah Bonsu there was Sir David Ajay, who has been speaking to JoyNews about the proposed new Parliament House building. He's also providing further explanations on why it is necessary.
We are hoping that the project will sometime this year start on site. As the Speaker said, the government has committed to it in the budgets, and if we are able to start this year, it can be completed within the next 3 years. At the moment, the way the master plan works is that you have the sort of buildings of the Third Republic, the two pavilions. One is the Parliament, one is the banqueting hall. And what we're now doing is removing the parliamentary chamber to this new chamber and refurbishing the old Parliament to be another conference facility for Parliament. With that, we're also putting all the car parks that you see that are on surface parking under the Parliament for security, so parliamentarians can drive into a secure zone and rise up directly into the chamber, but also to allow diplomatic visits that are coming to also be able to have their own secure port come in, the president to also be able to come in, and for all the support facilities, press galleries, libraries, museum to talk about the history of our parliament, our unique democracy, as well as support facilities are all going to be housed in this main block.
Mr. Ajay, who is an architect, Speaker of Parliament, Professor Michael Quay, says the cost of the project has so far not been determined.
We had a tender process by which we had 3 architectural firms competing for this job, 2 from Ghana, 1 from abroad, and overwhelmingly, not only us, the Institution of Engineers were asked to make an analysis and bring a report which was one-sided, overwhelmingly in favor of those that we have now been choosing. So we are making progress and has committed itself to some funding. It reflected in the budget. And we are also looking for external sources to complement that project. Within the parameters of Parliament, there will be a canteen, there will be every possible thing you can imagine, from a hotel to eating places. In fact, nobody needs to leave the parameters of this building in order to say, I'm going to eat and come. If it's 1 hour break, within the parameters, you should be able to eat and report to work. And all these are going to go back to the changes we are making, including our clocking in and so on and so forth.
So essentially, the Speaker makes a case that this will support or help in making the MPs effective, because there will be a clocking system. You don't need to go out to say, you don't have an excuse to essentially go out of the premises because there's everything provided for you. But the building itself and this announcement has been a point of controversy, which is coming up today. We'll be getting reactions from Ghanaians on social media shortly. But before that, we can listen to former Gender Minister Otiku Afisa-Jaba, who's been reacting to news of a new building for parliamentary business.
But in the area of development, we have to prioritize. Ghana has a development plan that we've been updating, and we need to stick to it, ensure that in terms of the development of Ghana, it's nationalistic. We must remove partisan issues from national issues. I find that most often we look at things from the colors of party or colors of sex and all of that, or colors of ethnicity. When you are building a nation, you must look at the color of the nation, of the red, gold, green with the black star, of the community of Ghanaians. And so that is where you look at your priorities. We have competing needs in a country like ours. Are you going to send every child to school vis-a-vis building a new place for Parliament? Must the parliamentarians have a new place because we have increased the number of regions, and therefore constituencies will come in, and therefore you have more parliamentarians? Those are things that the leaders of today will have to sit down and really weigh.
Otiku Afisa-Jaba, the former Gender and Social Protection Minister, there making the point about focusing on development as against this new building. But the controversy has been also about how a country that's not very rich, like Ghana, is investing so much in parliamentary buildings at the expense of numerous developmental problems that the country faces at this point. That question is on social media, and we'll tell you how you've been voting on it. We'll bring you that on social. We'll bring you raise our Facebook page for you to see how people have been voting on that. But let's speak to African Center for Parliamentary Affairs, Executive Director of the African Center for Parliamentary Affairs, Dr. Draman. Hello, Dr. Draman.
Yes. Can you hear me?
Yes, I hear you clear. Do you hear me?
Yes, I can hear you.
So first of all, you must have heard the story. It broke over the weekend, essentially on Friday, and it's been, you know, part of the news since the weekend. How do you assess this new announcement?
Well, I mean, as you've been saying, I don't know what people are saying on social media, but I heard the former gender minister talk about, I mean, prioritizing as a nation. I think for me, there are two questions. I mean, first of all, can we afford it as a nation? Number two, is it necessary? And I think I want to start with the second question. We were here in during the 6th Parliament when Right Honourable Speaker at the time, undertook refurbishment and rehabilitation of the current chamber. It cost the nation several millions of euros at the time. And I think there was a lot of hue and cry at the time about the cost of undertaking such a project. I think it hasn't been 3 years yet, and we are already talking about building a new chamber. And at this time, we don't even know how much it's going to cost. And you can be sure, I mean, based on history, based on what we know about our country, this is going to run into several millions of dollars that will keep counting for many years to come. So for me, I think our leaders must answer those two questions. I mean, if you take, for instance, maybe the British House of Commons, we borrow our tradition from the British. You take the Canadian House of Commons. Those are buildings that are about 150, 200 years old. And I think all they do is every now and then there is some rehabilitation and refurbishment so that they can guard history, they can maintain history, and they can maintain tradition. In our country, we have a penchant for just pulling things down and rebuilding. And this is a nation that is struggling to educate its children. This is a nation that is struggling to provide health care to its people and so on. So I think we just need to have a conversation about whether this is a priority or not. So that's just my reaction, Gifty, if you ask me.
Right. So I'm bringing you back to the point or the arguments that the Speaker of Parliament raises. So the Speaker talks about the fact that essentially Parliament will have everything. That will give very little, if not none, excuse to MPs to get out of their premises so that they can stay, have an hour of break, come back and work. What we look for is for our MPs to be efficient. If we're talking about efficiency, this is one of the ways we can get them to be efficient.
Look, there are so many countries in the world that don't have the amount of space that we have. If you go to Japan, this is a country that is struggling with space. And within the little space that they have, they've been very efficient in managing, and they have a bigger population than we do. So I think, for me, under the current space that we have, if our leaders are really minded, I think they can provide some of what the Right Honourable Speaker is talking about within the current space that we have, particularly at a time when we are struggling to fund our free SHS, we are struggling to fund our national health insurance, we are struggling to provide, to eliminate schools under trees and so on. So for me, I think we should seriously look at our priorities and see whether this is somewhere that we need to put our money. And indeed, if we are going to do that, then I think our leaders should tell us exactly how much this is going to cost, rather than the current, we don't know how much it's going to cost, and we are committing ourselves to, a cost kind of envelope that we don't know how much. That is very disturbing, and I think that those are the real questions that need to be answered.
So for you, even if we have to go, that is a very big if. Even if we have to go on with it, there is still the need to furnish the people with a lot more information.
Yes, indeed, because I think it's going to be our money, Gifty. We need to know how much this is going to cost. It's going to be our taxpayers' money, even if it is not, if it's borrowed money. You and I and our children are going to have to cough it up. And I think Parliament, as a house that represents all of us, has a responsibility to be transparent and put all the figures and all the information on the table, so that right from the beginning we know what it is. And if anybody goes beyond what has been agreed upon, then questions will need to be answered and so on. But if we are committing to something that we are not sure how much it's going to cost, I think you know the rest of the story, Gifty.
And also talking about security, we know that recently one of the key things that we've had to discuss as a matter of national debate is security for parliamentarians. what we're told by the architect is that this provides a secure zone through which everybody that's coming to Parliament, every VIP, will get to be in a secured area. From there, they get straight into the chamber. So it sort of limits the security, the exposure to security breaches that they may have to deal with in Parliament.
Look, we have now a police station in Parliament. We have 2 entrances. I mean, these are guarded by police. I have been to countries where they don't even have police at the entrance of Parliament, but security is ensured for parliamentarians as well as for visiting dignitaries. I mean, if we want to secure our leaders, we want to secure the presence of Parliament, I think that can be done under the current arrangements, under the current structures that we have. We don't need a new building to if you like, to secure our leaders, to guarantee their security.
In that case, now that it looks like, I mean, of course, we're still waiting for more information on this, but now, now that it looks like it's a sealed deal, so to speak, what will be your own expectation of how, you know, we dealt with it as Ghanaians? And when you finish answering this question, I'll take you to social media. We'll find out what people are saying about this.
Well, you know, Gifty, I think we elect our members of Parliament, and their responsibility is to hold government to account. Their responsibility is to hold everyone in the nation to account for their stewardship, to account for how they handle resources and they handle power. And I think our members of Parliament have the moral responsibility to be the first group of people that would uphold this principle of transparency and accountability, so that in everything that they do, whatever decision that is to be taken, I think they need to come clean and tell us, you know, inform all of us. Can you imagine if a government department shows up before Parliament for a project and says, yes, we want to do this project, but we don't know how it's going to cost and we want you to approve it? What is going to be the reaction of our members of Parliament? And what is going to be their role in terms of ensuring accountability and securing the public purse? I think these are the issues that we are talking about here.
Well, let's go on social media now, find out what people are saying. A lot of people are asking a lot of questions, the legitimate questions. Dumba Simon says, are we safe? Do we really need this? Come to my school and see no furniture for my students to sit. During BC, some of them have, I think you're trying to say, some of them have to carry furniture from their homes to the exam center. Was that right? Okay, Joseph Amwa says, this guy is really getting the very huge construction projects recently, and I believe you're referring to Mr. J, the architect. Baye Jeremiah says, if the leadership and the members of the House have seen the need to have extraordinary chamber for the business of the country, who am I to challenge or oppose to it? I only trust that it should be value for money project. Okay. Amponsa says, members of Parliament will always support anything good that comes their way. This is not news at all. Kweku Abeku says, this time, dear, your soup will be sweet. Wow. Architectural designer for the cathedral and now chamber. What a wow. Okay. Sherry Coco says, there are so many local architects. Why do they always give all the jobs to David Ajay? So unfair. With an exclamation mark there. Champion Chris says, we need to stop voting. These are leaders. They don't think. Come and see a shaman to New York Road, Washington, Peaceland, and others. All make bazaar. This place have to be developed, but the road is never good. Or the place have developed, but the road is never good. You are here coming to build what? The media too will not broadcast important news. Today, you broadcast Shatawale, tomorrow talented kids. You think that will not grow the nation? Okay, your thoughts there. Edu Ajimai says Ghanaians deserve to know, and he puts in caps, exact problem the construction of this edifice for Parliament is going to solve. Personally, I don't see any reason for such a move by our Parliament. And I'll go through the question, the messages again. But Dr. Draman, I just want to find out quickly from you the sense of hopelessness that sometimes you get when you read some of these messages. The sense of hopelessness. Do you get the feeling that people have really had it? You know, when it comes to these debates, people are not even willing to engage in an intellectual debate, so to speak. You know. To say, is this okay? Well, if it's not okay, why do we think it's not okay? What are the reasons we are given? What are the arguments we are advancing to the effect that? But people, immediately you bring it up, you might have someone who says, well, our leaders, they don't care about us, forget about them. Or someone who says, well, we can never trust these guys anyway. So it's a mixture of apathy and dismissiveness that you see. And I'm wondering what you make of that when it comes to national engagement, the necessary national engagement that helps us move on developmentally.
Yeah, I think the problem with our country is that almost every issue is politicized, and that is, the excessive partisanship that cuts through our politics, and then it goes down to even us ordinary Ghanaians. That is not doing our nation any good. Like you said, instead of people to have an intellectual and reasoned discussion, once you start and you start maybe giving your part of the argument, people are immediately going to brand you as either anti-government or pro-opposition, and that is our undoing. That is our undoing. I think we need to move away from this, because look, at the end of the day, when things don't go well, if whether it is caused by the current government or it's caused by a previous government, I think we Ghanaians are the ones that are living it. That's the only country that we have. So if we can have a very reasoned discussion, devoid of the excessive partisanship that divides our leaders and our politicians, I think that can help us as a nation.
Social media, and then take some of the messages we have there. Abubakar Abdul Razak says, and we keep voting for them to keep signing loan here and there. Oh my God. Richard Sokiri, how many MPs does Ghana really need? Can't we see that we can't be increasing the number of seats forever? Is this sustainable? We should use our brains. Or in the very near future, MPs may be meeting at the Accra Sports Stadium due to their sheer numbers. And you call it fake democracy. And the messages go on and on. But I'm going to introduce to you a member of Parliament for Kumbunu, Ras Mubarak, who is one of the MPs, or who is kicking against this development. But before I go back again, some people have said that if you look at the executive, you look at the legislature, and yesterday we had this conversation here, you see how they, sort of improve. We've seen the executive move from the castle, the castle in Osu, to now, Flagstaff House, then now Jubilee House. We've also seen how the legislature has moved. I beg your pardon, the judiciary has also moved. That they used to be in a particular place which wasn't very good. They've been relocated. So if you're looking at it in that respect, the legislature also needs some improvement, needs some movement, needs some development, if you like.
But Gifty, you just showed, at the beginning of your broadcast, you showed the inner part of our chamber. That's very beautiful. I have been to almost every parliament that there is on this continent, and I can tell you what we have is one of the best that you can find anywhere. Go to Kenya, go to Uganda. You see the way members of parliament sit. They don't even have individual seats as we do have. Yes, strictly, the kind of bench system that you have
Yeah.
in the House of Commons in England. And they keep, trying to find ways to make use of that space. And again, we want to go back to my earlier question, that this is coming on the back of a huge investment that was done during the Sixth Parliament by the Right Honorable Duaja, who were here, in Ghana, when there was a lot of controversy at the time, whether there was value for money, it was too costly, and so on and so forth. And then I am not sure whether we recouped the investment that was made during the Sixth Parliament by refurbishing this chamber and bringing furniture from China and bringing electronics and so on. The tablets that they have on each individual MP's desk and so on. And then all of a sudden, we are throwing all that away and going into a new project. So for me, those are some of the questions I think that would need to be answered.
So for me, and let's listen to the Member of Parliament for Kumu, Ras Mubarak, who has been kicking against this latest move by government. He thinks that government is misplacing priorities.
For me, it's an outrage. We're a very small country, and even if the population of Ghana in the future reaches 50 million, this country does not need 450 members of parliament. And I think as a country, we seriously need to get our priorities right. We don't need it. And what would be our explanations to our constituents who need amenities, who needs roads, who need, water, who needs schools?
Honorable, am I to understand that this decision is coming from the top, the leadership, and that members were not consulted on this proposal?
So there's a Parliamentary Service Board that deals with issues like this. It is the board that is currently addressing this. So this is not something that has come to ordinary members of Parliament, even though leadership of the House, the speakers and leadership from both sides, serve on the Parliamentary Service Board. But, this is not something that we ought to be entertaining. We don't have a minority position yet. So I'm giving you an individual position, and my position is that it's an outrage. Look at the architecture at Westminster. They don't have seats for enough members of Parliament, and MPs would come and even stand in the chamber. Many don't get seats in Westminster, where we learned all this from. So why are we doing this to ourselves when we have serious issues of underdevelopment to deal with? Go to many schools across the country. Kids are still, sitting on the floor.
How does this come to you? There is no cost for the building, and yet an architect has been selected to build this edifice.
That is very surprising because you would ordinarily want to have a value for money, audit on some of these things. I am not sure about the procurement processes that have been undertaken in respect of this particular project. And I think we need to hasten slowly.
That's MP for Kumu, Ras Mubarak there. Doc, let me wrap up the conversation with you. At the risk of talking about it over and over again and not having anything change, it's something that we're quite familiar with. For you, where do we go from here?
I think where we go from here is nowhere, really. It's nowhere. Because, as a country, sometimes we make a lot of noise, and then at the end of the day, our leaders still go ahead with whatever they have decided to do. All I can say is that I think change will truly come if we just don't sit down and wait between elections. Just sitting down and waiting for change every 4 years looks like it's not something that is sustainable, and it's not something that will get our leaders to sit up. If Ghanaians don't want this, I think we all have to voice our concerns and have to raise our voices in a very civil way. You see what's happening in Hong Kong right now. citizens said, we don't want this, and they came out to voice their concerns in a very civil way. And I think that, you know, as a country, today and tomorrow, I think that is how we are going to grow our democracy. Our leaders, I believe, would have to listen to the people. What is coming from social media, I think, is the pulse of the nation, and they have to pay attention to that. They ignore that, well, I mean, they do that at their own risk. And I think that that's where we go from here.
Well, Doc, I say very big thanks to you for your time this afternoon and being a part of this conversation. Dr. Rashid Draman there, he's Executive Director of the Africa Center for Parliamentary Affairs there, joining us in that conversation about the new chamber for Parliament. Your thoughts are still overflowing on social media, and some of you do not think that we need this at this time. A lot of you think it should be diverted. Well, it's a conversation that's still ongoing. It's a developing story. We'll bring you updates as and when there is.